Jordana Mendelson. I direct the KJCC here at NYU, and we are doing an interview with Associate Director Laura Turégano to talk about the transfer of the KJCC archive into university archives, but also use the occasion to review really the history of the center, since Laura was Associate Director for 20 years. Fundamentally involved in the building of the center, carrying it through its evolution. And the purpose of this interview is multifold. For the one hand, to think about what is in the archive. For the other, to think about Laura's role in building the center. And to also share together some highlights about what goes on behind the scenes at a center that you may or may not find in the archive. So why don't we start by doing a little bit of a biographical setup. If you can talk to us briefly about who you are, your background, how you came to NYU, and how you became Associate Director of the Center.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Laura Turégano. I started my career in international relations, and I was actually working for the European Commission, and for different reasons, I got a scholarship to come to study to NYU. And what I thought was going to be just 2 years of studying, it was a master's in arts administration, turned to be 25 years, 26 years actually. And it was during the time that I was doing the master's that I discovered the King Juan Carlos Center. I came to talk to them because I was very interested. What I was doing before was cultural management, cultural diplomacy. So it was Jim Fernandez, the director at the time, and Caroline Sorking, the former associate director. And I started as graduate assistant. So I finished my master's at NYU. I went to work for a consulting firm for 2 years in fundraising and philanthropy. And when the former associate director left, Jim contacted me and said, "Hey, this position is open. Do you want to apply?" And I did. And 20 years later, still here. I mean, I was associate director from 2004 till 2023, and then I've been for a year as a special projects officer. So I've seen the center evolve inside out. We've done a lot of things. So I have a lot of the institutional memory of the center. I think I've been the longest staff member at the center.
So talk to us a little bit about the first years that you were connected to the center, perhaps first impressions when you were a graduate assistant, but also that transition into a leadership role for a center that was still relatively new. Obviously, Caroline was the first associate director, but when you came in, you're still coming in a moment in which the center is building itself.
Yeah, totally. I think it was a very exciting moment because Jim had not been director for that long. The center was conceived as a very high-profile institution within NYU. They were still looking for a director, so it was really I was completely part of the making of the center of its nature. So they had started with a very high profile
because of the relationship with John Bradamus, right? In terms
exactly.
Of
I mean, the center was created by John Bradamus, who had a vision to have a global university, which also has been really in my 21 years at NYU to see the evolution of how NYU has really become a global entity. So he had this vision. He wanted to create a center dedicated to the study and research of Spain and the Spanish-speaking world. There was the Deutsches Haus, La Maison Française, Irish House. So there was a niche for Spanish and Latin American center. The Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies existed. So this was another center more focused on events because we are not an academic center. Right. We don't have programs. So yeah, it was very interesting to see how it evolved because it was the bones of a center with a three-pronged mission: academic, cultural, and institutional relations, and Yeah, I do think that it was when I started that we really gave it a structure, and it's not that I mean I do take some credit for that, a lot of credit, but I think it was also the time. It was young, and when I arrived, I was full of energy. I think that I was very aligned with the center's mission. My previous experience, because I was a cultural attaché of the delegation of the European Commission in Jordan, really fit very well with what we were trying to do, and also with Jim Fernandez, we had an amazing chemistry.
Yeah.
So what started as because I remember when I was a graduate assistant, there was so much going on, but there was not structure. So I think that when I arrived, we really settled that to have a structure, because we are public facing. So I was very aware of how we needed to build an image, a brand, content, the production. Of course, I was much younger, and I had. I mean, I think I still do, but I gave 200%. I mean, it was so we started really getting into the three pillars of the center, and yeah. I mean, I don't want to go on and on, but that's how it.
And when you think about what's unique about the center, because as you mentioned, there are several language and cultural houses on campus. There are focus departments. That combination of being cultural but also public facing, when you think about the way that you structure out the planning, what do you feel like may not be present in the archive that helps describe the success really in developing a public that expects to come here, that has come year after year, and at the same time the programming is constantly evolving? So can you speak a little bit about what is also unique to the center, because there is an academic component built into the center, even while our primary force of sharing that is public facing, in terms of understanding the contents of the archive in relation to the contents of what the center actually does.
Yeah, because I mean, if you go to the archive, when a scholar, a researcher that's going to go to the KJCC archive, what you're going to find is a lot of flyers, posters, documents of events. But of course, that tells just part of the story. That's those are the results of it. So what you are not going to see, it's how these events were decided, how they were organized, what happened at the events, what happened afterwards, and I'm talking about events because that's really what makes us different. What we have that other houses, I mean, other houses do, but I think that we have made the most of what we have, which is we have a venue, a very spectacular venue. To my point, I think it's one of the nicest, if not the nicest, of the university. We're well endowed. We have a budget, which is great. Sometimes a curse because I mean, you want to use it, and leadership. I mean, you had different directors that have different ideas, and then together with me, we're a complete team. With the directors, I've worked with 4 different directors: Jim Fernandez, Jola Bagni, Anado Pico, and yourself, Jordana Mendelson. So we do events. There are some academic events, there's cultural events, and there's events that are institutional relations type of events. And you don't see in the archive how well, first the chairs, how they were proposed, how they were decided. We really. I didn't have a say in the decision of the chairs, but once the chairs came to the center, I had a lot of relation with them, and I did actually contribute to the making of their programming.
Let's pause for a minute just so we can clarify, because when we talk about the academic content, the center, even prior to its inception, has named chairs. So one, the KJC chair dedicated to Spain and the Spanish-speaking world, and Spain and cultures and civilizations, and the other chair, the Others Bayo, Latin America, cultures and civilizations. So when we talk about the programs of the chairs in the center, you're really talking about two distinct chairs each year. One focused largely on Spain and one focused largely on Latin America. And those chairs are nominated by faculty. The faculty vote on it, it gets approved. And so you would, once those decisions are made, then the selection chairs really given over to you.
Yeah, they were given to me.
So really, aside, there's a kind of preliminary discussion among faculty, and the process is quite unique in that it comes from faculty nominations with the idea that the chairs are immersed in the university culture. So the courses that the chairs give are aligned with the department of the faculty member that nominates them. So then we take over in the center with really the public programming piece. And so even if you had no relationship to the chairs whatsoever, they would come and it would be on your desk and you would then develop the programming. Could you talk us through maybe one or two experiences with a chair that also helps maybe understand that process of event planning from kind of A to Z? Because when we talk about staff, it's you as associate director and an administrative secretary, and then some student employees. But the staff is small for the kind of spectacular programming that you were just describing.
I mean, it would be very difficult to pick a chair. I can describe the process with each one, because it was really from the beginning to the end, from the visa processing till the
closing their apartment,
the termination. And it's one of the things that people don't see is that I was jack of all trades, because there is this to the end that sounds very administrative, but then there's the content of their programming that was we sat down together with the director to plan and see what was most appropriate. We have chairs from so many different backgrounds. We have historians, we have journalists, we have anthropologists, literature. Politicians. I mean, we've had such a variety. We've had 50 plus chairs. So it was the standard would be to do a symposium, and sometimes the symposia were huge. I mean, in a way, I don't want to name anyone,
but the diversity, is important to underline.
The diversity was incredible, and I was with them from beginning to end, and also what you don't see is that how we created an image for each chair event, how we created a brand of the center, because it's one of the things that it's very important when you do cultural management or academic management in an institution, is that you can have the greatest program, whether it's a conference, whether it's a film festival, or whether it's a lecture. You can have something really good, but if people don't know about it, then it's lost. So there was so much effort in communication, in marketing. So as you can see, I'm talking about a lot of different tasks, and this was done by me, most of it, and with the help
delegating too
of graduate assistants and undergrad assistants
who also change every semester, every year, right? So the constant. What I think is important to underline in what you're talking about, and what is also visible in the archive, is the great imprint that you were able to help directors and chairs develop in terms of the programming. And that consistency has to do with your leadership, but also trying to clearly define what it means to perforate a lot of activities on campus to get out what is really a unique experience, which is a chair will come for one semester only.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not regular faculty. They don't necessarily have a built-in audience. They don't necessarily have a built-in student body that's going to enroll in their class. So you have to work very quickly from appointment until when they arrive to their programming to synthesize and communicate very quickly why it is important for this person to be here, why it is important for you, plural, right, the NYU community, the public to come and listen to this person, and also to give communication to these symposia and public events, which are usually quite impactful, quite high profile, but exist within a larger university ecology that is cluttered with a lot of other events and programs.
And then with the chairs, it was very important because that was our main mission. We are part of NYU, so to get programs that were complete, that were interesting, and that were advertised, so that the NYU community would benefit from, faculty, students. That was difficult. It was a hard task, and I think we did it. And not only it was impactful for the faculty, students, and the general public, because all of our events are open to the public, but also for the chairs. So that was the academic pillar, the academic mission. With the cultural mission, I think that I was given a lot of freedom throughout these years, because that was kind of the strength that I brought in. Also, my interest as well. I'm particularly interested in film, the performing arts, and photography. So. With the different directors that I work with, they gave me a lot of freedom to propose and organize events, and we did all kinds of activities. I mean, I loved the film festivals. We've done interventions of the center, live music. I mean, it's the variety of what we've been able to do that you can only see in the archive as flyers. But
I wanted to ask about
you don't
something.
see how many people came to all of the events. Anyway, before you finish or after you finish, this is the institutional relations part, which is also something that it's very fine. There's a lot of finesse in that. Can
you talk about that a little bit more? Because when you came in, and we talked about before how the center was building. I don't always know if within a university center, the charge is to look outside of the university to build these partnerships, to build relationships that are consistent. Can you talk about also, you talked a little about the personal role about it, but also how important it is the way that you were able to bring attention to the center. You spoke already about the university community, but beyond NYU, to call attention to the fact, because in New York City, we have the Instituto Cervantes, we have the Consulado, we have other foundations, other institutes that have a relationship with Spain, some more governmental, some more institutional. And this would be unique because our center is independent. We are located within a university. And whenever I've tried to explain to people what is unique about here is that there are events and conversations that can happen here that are unique to happening within a university environment. But explaining that out, especially to people who come with a different model of cultural institution, is challenging.
Which is so liberating, because one of the things that really characterizes us is that complete freedom of speech. We don't have an agenda. We're completely open. It's a university. So this is a place to discuss. There's a dialogue. So that was very refreshing, because we could go talk to anyone about anything, and this was the place to do it. This is an open forum. Talk about it. in terms of institutional relations, as I was saying before, the construction of these relations it's subtle and direct. I mean, it's go out there to other events, meet people, go to different. I mean, I think we have a very special or wide, not a special, wide relationship with consulates that are in New York. Any institution that is related to Spain and the Spanish-speaking world, we're open to talk. We would actively go and talk to different foundations, companies. I mean, we were constantly open and talking to people, and in a lot of, even they would come to our events and we would talk after the events, because that's one of the things that is very important, is that human connection, and also thanks to the space that we have, and also the intention and knowing how important it is to socialize after the events. We organize always receptions, and it's in these receptions where these connections happen, new projects can come about, or you meet so many different people, and not forgetting that we are open, and open to discussion of any kind, and there's been a lot of difficult moments here at the center, but this is what makes a university. It's study, research, discussion, different points of views.
Well, I was thinking about when we did the Atrium interviews for the 25th anniversary and talking with past chairs about what was unique about their experience here. And over again, it was that thematic, that here I could do things that I couldn't necessarily do somewhere else. Or because, and I think sometimes the chairs don't resist recognizing, we're like, no, really, as long as it falls within the budget and within what we can staff-wise, produce. And I think that is very unique and unusual, because I think oftentimes coming from other contexts, people are used to a center that is funded in a particular way or mandated a particular way. And our mandate is to invite chairs so that they will work with us to produce the most energizing, interesting content to engage the university community. Right. Also knowing that when people come to events from the university community and the wider community, they are going to ask hard questions, and they're going to challenge our chairs. And I think that idea of a chair bringing something to the university, but also growing while they're here through the semester that they're here with us, is also I think that is also something that you won't necessarily see in the archive, is the arc of growth. Both the impact the chair has and the impact that we have on the chair of them being here. Because in a way, the archive flattens that, right? It's the three flyers for the event.
And also you don't see each director had more of a vision. You don't see that. What you see, it's results. Right. And also you don't see the amount of work that goes into producing these events, because I always get these faces of awe when they ask how many are you doing. They think that we're like 20 people working at the center, and full time it's 2 full time, 1 part time, plus a myriad of students that help out. So that's you don't see that amount of effort and really leadership. I wouldn't say leadership. It's really motivation. Because in my 20 years, I was very driven. I loved it. What we did, and that you see events, you see lots of folders, lots of some photographs at the beginning, and but it's the effort of doing that and pushing through with a very small staff.
And I think you and I have talked a little bit about then also how that raised a bar of expectation. You know, that when you're building and you're initiating, you're in a growth pattern. But now the expectation, I think, is that there's almost limitless amount of possibility and resources.
In a way, it's kind of a I don't want to say because I think it's good, but we've died of success, even physically, because I mean, one of the things that we were not mandated to do, it's the exhibits, for example.
Right. I was going to ask about that. If you could talk, that's another space, right? That has that wasn't described as an exhibition space in the architectural plans. It's an atrium. It's not
described at all. It's not something that we were supposed to do. But of course, you have these huge, beautiful walls and such a beautiful atrium, and let's
activated, right?
Activated, because it was in my case my desire to do things. I mean, again, I was very, very driven, and it's like.
And also, you didn't have directors who said no, because I think your directors were also working in really great synergy with you.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, the exhibits, Jim Fernandez started with the first exhibits, but they were very handmade,
more pedagogical.
And we've had different types. I mean, that was once we started with exhibits, it was very clear that they had to be pedagogical.
Yeah.
That this was not an art gallery, that this was not a space for individual artists to show their work. They needed to have a content.
Yeah, and related to programming.
So that was very clear, and we've had a lot of proposals that we turned down. But yeah, we started putting the exhibits up ourselves.
On ladders with
hammers,
that you will see the photographs maybe of the exhibitions, or in the annual, like if someone wanted to review the exhibitions, they would look in the annual reports. Possibly they will look on the website. They would look.
It's interesting because that brings me to how we did everything ourselves, and especially a lot myself, and how throughout time we've professionalized it, and because it was necessary. I mean, I remember the first film festivals that we would do here. I mean, we had VHS, Betacam, mini DVs, and I myself, they were in the auditorium. I would change the films with the exhibits. Same thing. Now we have contractors to put them up, because it was like. But to your point, that has created an expectation,
right?
And now the walls cannot be empty. We need an exhibit so that added even more work.
I think when they are empty, the question is, what's going up next? I think also that circle that we were describing about putting forward a really interesting program, creating a space that is really active, brings a lot of people to the space, and then also a kind of flurry of proposals for people to say, can I do whatever in the space? And then it's really hard to actually unpack the process for them and to say, well, actually, we can't, because we have a mandate, one, which is that it's not a vanity space. It's not just for you to come and present something. We always ask of people when they propose, what is the connection, right? It's not, and I think also the partnering with a wide variety of constituents does mean that we can partner with institutions, centers, people outside of NYU. But the relevance has to always come back, right? And I think that's part of. I think you can read through the archive that if you look at the annual reports and you look at partners or co-sponsors, because there's also partnership building within the university, which is so important, that if you create a program and it stands alone, it also doesn't have as much visibility or buy-in by the university community. And I think that's something that also across the university has been learned over time about how to create those partnerships, which is also, given that NYU is so decentralized. So can you talk a little bit about, either specifically or in general terms, how you would go about building those partnerships from within the university? Because I know you've also worked over time, especially with the Department of Spanish and Portuguese, especially with the Creative Writing in Spanish program. Maybe we could take a minute and talk about what are actually some unique partnerships that built out the content of the programming, but I also think helped give definition to some of the priorities that were aligned with the mission, but also separate from the chairs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, the Department of Spanish and Portuguese was the natural department to have a connection with at NYU. That was a given, and that led to a lot of connections as well. Because I mean, I think that we really wanted to have that connection. So the more we attracted faculty to come, it was on a spiral effect that more things would happen. The departments that are in this building were very another natural connection, and history, the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, and the Center for Hebrew and Judaic Studies, Center for European and Mediterranean Studies, Remark Institute. So it was even just being in the same building, getting to know, again, it's the human connection that made possible the way we started, because now it's exponential. And now we are completely known within NYU because of our space. But that led to a lot of programming with the Department of Spanish and Portuguese and the MFA in Creative Writing in Spanish. That was also very. It nurtured our programming every semester, because they organize their events here on a regular basis, and I think that started with the poetry series that we founded here at the center, and in a way that helped a lot. I do believe that helped a lot the seed for the MFA in creative writing. I do think so. That's a personal opinion, which is very satisfactory on how things come out from what we do here at the center. And then that was one of the things that really evolved throughout the years, how we collaborated with departments, and the more you are out, the more you get to know other professors. The word gets out, and they come to us. I think that now it's very easy. I mean, and of course, the director is a faculty at NYU. So the synergies are amazing, and I think that the results are clear. And that's something that might not be as clear in the archive, or I think that's it, because if you look at the flyers and you see the different departments, that's something that you'll see that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, many more. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was thinking about in the early years of the center, you would publish these semester-long calendars, which were, I remember being a faculty member who was new to the university and being overwhelmed with just how, to see that also at the start of the semester meant that you could do co-curricular work with your classes. I always remember being so impressed with the people who were coming here. And I think also the partnerships that we had with faculty across the university as an interdisciplinary center. So you would have people from art history, from literature, working together with us to really build out these really dynamic programs that aligned with the chairs, but again, also created their own kind of cycle of opportunities. And I think it's visible in the archive, but in the shift from print to digital, it's also interesting to think about the archive as it exists in the university's special collections as a particular capsule. That was also a moment in which, all of the flyers are printed, a lot of the public-facing materials are printed, but then in the shift to digital now on the website, you would be that's where the annual reports are really key to kind of bringing that together. But I just remember the impact of, you could go to something any week, almost any day of the week, there would be something at the center, which still exists in that way. But talking about that rhythm, I wonder, just to fill out the piece about kind of staff, your leadership, and the rhythm of programming. Can you describe, often people ask, what is a typical day? What would be a typical day? or a typical week at the center. And I think hearing that from you would further illustrate, one, the kind of multitasking that you were talking about, the jack of all trades, but also is specific but not to our cultural center. I think in many ways, university cultural centers and the staff that work them have to have that multiplicity.
I think it happens in cultural centers in general, or centers that are devoted to public events. I mean, it was the variety of tasks that I would do within the same day. It was from there's different blocks in the tasks that I did, from pure budgeting, programming, production, actual production.
Like getting the lights set up, setting up the chairs, setting up the tables, the mics,
staffing, marketing, communication, public relations, all of that. It was constant. Each week we would have, at the beginning, we even had 4 events per week. And I mean, that was it was not logical. I mean, it was logical, and throughout the years, we also realized that it was better to do less events that were more impactful than too many. Each event, it's
its own ecosystem.
It's an ecosystem, because each event requires first the decision to include that event in the programming, and we tried to do it before the semester started, but there were always events that came up.
Meaning, just to clarify, even the documentation in the archive is incomplete, because oftentimes there will be events that happen here that aren't necessarily documented, or when you had created the semester-long calendars, there may have been things that emerged,
if a researcher wants to compare when we did the printed calendars with the flyers that are of that semester, there might be some discrepancies. We tried not to, because once we had the calendar, when we had the printed calendar, I think that
it worked better in many ways.
It worked better in a way, because that gave us, like, this is
and it was
your
closed.
framework. Don't go off rail with this. But anyway, so each week was the preparation of the events for the week, plus thinking of the events of the following week, plus thinking generally in terms of budgeting, of how it made sense. So there were many levels at the same time happening, and then the actual event. And in the actual event, it was actually quite physical.
Yeah.
And we've done really big events, and with the spontaneities and the problems that you have in the middle of events. I mean, I was just remembering when we had the mayor of a big town in Spain. We had all the setup, the PowerPoint, and then in the middle of it, the system went down. But I mean, she kept talking, and we rebooted the system. The same with another film. Again, I don't want to give it specific names, because I mean, I don't know how many events I've organized.
But those technical glitches.
And those things, you don't see them, but you have to be there. So there's, to your question of the daily job, there's a lot of adrenaline and a lot of multitasking that we've tried to streamline through systems and processes, and also learn from learning as well.
So let's talk a little bit about the why is the archive and university archives. In a way, that's a question we could have started with, but maybe we'll kind of come back to it, since we talked about the founding of the center. But about a year and a half ago, when we were doing the 25th anniversary, you and I were talking about what does that 25 years mean, and taking stock of it. And so thinking about what would be the value of this and what is actually in the archive and what isn't. Do you want to talk a little bit about the motivation and maybe also how the transfer of the archive folds into a larger interest in kind of taking stock and taking a kind of historical view of the center, because it is so unique in its initiation and its evolution for NYU?
Actually, I think it was a great opportunity to gather and to have a memory, because we've done so many things, so many events. We've invited so many people. What our job needed to be kept and remembered. And the 25th anniversary really gave that time to reflect. And I think we've added value to the university and to the city of New York. And I think that needed to be recorded. So
I remember
it is very important.
We were thinking about this transfer, and I don't think you or I realized what a large task it was. Initially, well, we did realize it. But I mean, actually, from our first conversations with the university archivist to, last semester when it finally was transferred there, and there's still some aspects of the archive.
It was a big process. One of the things I always like to, this is how I went through university, through work. I keep copies of everything. It's something, for some reason, it's an instinct, and we all do it. We all did it here at the center, so it wasn't hard to find what we had done from before I started, but. I kept copies of everything, folders, physical and on the digital on my computer.
I mean, to be clear, if someone goes to the archive, what they will see is actually, in many ways, your organization of the archive. If we think about the way that the archive was not created as an archive, but is an archival representation of what was actually the way that you manage the center.
Exactly the way
so it's not a separate in other words, there's not an imposition of an archival organization on the materials. Rather, the materials retain their organization as you had organized the everyday life of the center. So I think for someone thinking about administrative history, institutional history, that archive is organized as an administrative archive.
Because that was the only way to handle the amount of events that we did. You have to be really organized,
and it's organized by events.
Correct?
So that you could move through chronologically. Not everything is in there, right?
We know that there's information that I actually had to spend an entire month going through all of the folders and taking out information that was not relevant. So I mean, it's also I'm to blame if someone because it's the archive is my view of. Well,
it reflects a functionality, right? About how you actually keep organization to a place that is so fast moving, that is moving on a micro and macro scale all of the time. This goes back to kind of what is and isn't in the archive, and I think you talking about the personal relationship with partners, the conversations, what happens after the events, how the space actually is activated through that intangible, kind of ephemeral piece is what isn't in the archive. And as you said, what you see in the archive is the result of what are these many layers of conversation. But also what you wouldn't see is a lot of the negotiation, the back and forth, the subtleties and diplomacy required in terms of actually given the over 50 chairs that we've had, every chair has their own personality, their own disciplinary framework, their own expectations.
It's that's been at a human level has been very rewarding. I've met 50 plus. I mean, not 50, but yeah.
Well, each of them brought guests with them too. So
and they were different personalities, and I've made because we spent a lot of time together.
It's a very intensive 5 months.
Yeah,
the chairs are
so
here.
I've made friends, but not only the chairs, also the other events, whether cultural or the institutional relations events. When you are doing an event, you really strip down to the basics, because you really have to get it done.
Yeah.
And it's been very, very rewarding. And what you don't see also in the archives is actually, and that's impossible for us to know or to catalog. It's the connections that were made here at the center in these events, whether academic, cultural, or more of an institutional relations type. The connections were amazing.
The after effect, right?
The after effect. People meet in the reception. They meet here. They ask. I mean, I've known of people that got married. Because they met here. And that's like a funny example, but in terms of more academic acumen or cultural projects, films, that's happened. And we don't know exactly how many, but a lot, because then they tell us, oh yeah, you remember the and that's something that you don't see in the archive. But I think that the archive tells the breadth, the diversity, and how cared our events were. They were not random.
Right.
We did a conscious effort in programming, and we really tried to touch upon all disciplines.
Yeah, I was thinking also about. In many ways, the evolution or changing role that the center has played, and to think about, on the one hand, how the center has helped incubate a lot of, and foster and nourish a lot of initiatives that have then gone on to grow into their own entities, is really interesting to think about how conversations and seeds of conversation start through the kind of interdisciplinarity, but also because NYU is so decentralized, I think oftentimes coming here would spur conversations that now have generated new centers and new programs and new initiatives. And so if one were to go back in the archive, you would find, many of the, if we think about the collaborations with the Hemispheric Institute, if we think about the collaborations with what is now the Latinx Project, if you think about research groups that started through here, I found it really refreshing and interesting to go back and be like, actually that kind of initiated with a conversation here.
Like Zulo, the Philippines.
Right, the Philippine Studies Initiative.
We did here an exhibit. So a lot of things have had a home here that was open, and that evolved into bigger things within the university, and that you can. I mean, I've seen throughout the years how things have been more structured, and with that vision as NYU as a global network, how it has evolved, and it's happened.
I remember we were thinking about with the anniversary also the role of Bradamus in creating the center, thinking about a certain model of, we talked about freedom, progressive programming, interdisciplinarity, that openness, and also I think the dialogue that the center created, because in its first years, especially thinking about the dialogue with NYU Madrid, the centrality of that program as being one of the first study abroad programs that NYU had, having started it in Spain during the dictatorship, offering a portal into Spain, but also reading back the early materials of NYU Madrid that are in the archive as well, there's a real openness and excitement about what the university can do to initiate these kind of transatlantic dialogues. And also thinking about in the first years of the center, when other programs were growing, the center became a conduit for funding extracurricular and co-curricular programming. There was an early grants program funding doctoral resource from the Coca-Cola grants to Spain. And we were reviewing these applications, and I was thinking of how many scholars I now know who occupy professorships, who have initiated programs, who started with like a Coca-Cola grant to Spain or
exactly,
something.
As I was saying before, I mean, it's like it's so satisfying to see. It's not only in the academic world, in you see, I mean, the academic and institutional relations. I don't want to be a broken record with the three pillars.
No, but they fuel each other.
You've seen, I mean, faculty that are now well renowned. Started.
Well, you find their program proposal in the archive.
Cultural projects, people that were not that well known and that are now very, very much known. I mean, it's amazing, and I think that we've done a great job in getting them together and nurturing and facilitating the work.
I thought it would be, which won't be done by us, but to create an almost family tree where you, kind of tracing.
That's what I'm saying.
Where you were tracing the kind of.
It's impossible to find that. Yeah.
So let's think a little bit in terms of what we haven't talked about. What do you feel like are other questions, appearances, ideas that aren't in the archive, or if you picked a piece of paper up in the archive that is there, might lead you to a different story than what happened, or I don't know if there's something that stands out for you about either something that is or isn't in the archive that you would love for someone, a future researcher, to know about that we haven't yet covered.
Well, the level of care and love that was in the center to get to do the amount of events that we've done.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of motivation, a lot of energy, a lot of drive, and synergies with the director, because it's a very small staff. That's what the archive won't tell,
right?
And it's the effort that required to get the job done.
Yeah, it's true, because the archive, as we know what can and can't be deposited, strips the personal away.
Yeah.
Because for confidentiality, for intimacy, for privacy, you strip away in many ways all of the kinds of conversations that don't fall within the folders.
The human side of it.
And you don't see also what wasn't done. What was of course, selected out?
The amount of projects that we turned down.
And oftentimes I think turning down, not because they're not interesting in themselves, but because they don't necessarily work within this kind of loosely based formula of actually hitting all three of those marks, right? I think also being responsive to. Now that we are also going back to the archive and thinking about what were students' roles, the early exhibitions that Jim did with his classes, the participation and listening to see also what will the next 25 years look like? How do programs become responsive? What will the different directors bring to it? I think is also exciting. So to me, why it's not a dormant institution after so many years of programming is that every semester it changes.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's the DNA of the center, is that every semester you can't predict.
I got many times the question, how you've been working there for so long, and it's how
does it not get tired? How did it not get tired?
Because it was, each semester was different. Each day was different. It's the diversity, the variety. It's huge.
Laura, thank you so much for sharing your reflections. I feel like this has been an invaluable testimony, not only to your extreme dedication and care, you mentioned love for really developing the center, but also providing that insight about really what it takes to not only build, but also continue creating a space for true dialogue. I think that is going to be a wonderful way of thinking about going from your reflections to going back in the archive and seeing how it does and doesn't fill out some of the details.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you resisted dropping specific names, so now someone will have to go to the archive to dig out the specific names.
So you go to the archives, and from this conversation, you fill the gaps.
Fill in the gaps. So thank you so much.
Thank you.